Welcome to this, what I believe is the third Auxiliary Markings Club Zoom meeting, the first one for 2024. We're really glad you're here. Of course, we have to do the obligatory commercial at the beginning, which is the Auxiliary Markings Club seeks to provide a forum for collectors these fascinating and ubiquitous bits of postal history, either as a primary interest, which it is for some of us, such as collecting pointing fingers, or as an adjunct to your postal history collecting. Postalmarkings.org is our website. We do have a digital membership, which is $15 a year, and I think is a real bargain. And if you're not a member, I hope you'll look into that. Just a little bit more, the Auxiliary Markings Club brings together a diverse group of collectors, and I would say not just collectors, but scholars as well, who are interested in the movement of the mails, especially mail that's had problems. The evidence of those problems are the markings applied to envelopes and packages, as well as how the mail was processed. They may have to do with inadequate postage, problems with delivery addresses, accidents that occurred, on ships, planes, trucks, carrying the mail, and literally hundreds of other reasons. So we're a pretty diverse group. We collect from across the globe. So there's always something for collectors, no matter what you collect. And if for some reason there isn't something, but you would like to furnish an article for our excellent Auxiliary Markings journal, I know that that would be most welcome as well. So our topic tonight is going to be Canadian Special Delivery Service, the forms and labels. It's a topic that I had never really heard or engaged with. And I had the chance on the Philatelic Specialist Society of Canada Zoom presentation 2 or 3 months ago to hear Raymond talk about this topic, and I thought it was perfect for our group. So our presenter tonight is Raymond Villeneuve. He, after attending CAPEX 1987, became interested in philately and collecting. As an elementary school teacher, he soon found out that one can use this to the benefit of his individual classes and as a way to teach the subject. His personal collecting interest started with thematics first. And this was followed by the Olympics. I'm also an Olympic collector, so always nice to meet another one. That included the stamps, covers, postmarks, and poster stamps from pre-1956 countries where the Olympic Games were held. He also collects UNESCO and its worldwide mission, Japanese New Year stamp and card traditions. He's become recently involved in postal history, first with his home county of Russell County in Eastern Ontario, then with Canada's involvement with the United Nations and its various agencies. For the past 15 years or so, he's collected Canadian special delivery covers and studying its service along with the forms, labels, and postmarks. Lately, he's begun researching Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, and its many alumni and their contribution to society. His philatelic involvement has included membership in most of the stamp clubs in the Ottawa-Gatineau area, president of the Ottawa Philatelic Society, a member of Orapex, which is a national show in Canada, their organizing committee, chair of the OPS 125th Anniversary Committee, a member of Calgary Philatelic Society, a member of the Calgary Philatelic Society and BNAPEX joint convention that was held, member of the Postal History Society of Canada, and I know we have some Postal History Society members here tonight, so welcome to you, and the British North American Philatelic Society. He's a past contributor to BNA Topics, the Maple Leaves Journal, PHSC Journal, and the Calgary Philatelist. So Ramon, we're very pleased to have you with us tonight, and I'm going to stop sharing. Am I sharing? Did I share?
No, you didn't.
Okay, well, that's fine. Well, it doesn't matter because I said everything that was on the screen, so no worries. So Ramon, we're ready for you when you're ready to begin.
Okay. my screen should be coming up.
Yes.
Oh, so are you getting that first?
Yes, we can see it.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. So the Canadian Special Delivery Service is really a distinct service from the regular postal service in Canada. And it attracted me because of not just the forms and labels, but how it had so many different instructional hand stamp cancels. And so that's why I got interested in it mainly. It's a service which had its own carriers to deliver the special delivery items, its own set of rules and regulations, and of course these forms and labels. And that's we'll be looking at a number of them tonight. The list of forms and labels associated with the service includes quite a few, well, maybe half, which were not really meant for the public. They were internal forms, statistic reports, and so on. The ones we'll be touching tonight I've highlighted here with, so they're identified by numbers, SD1 to 8, the ones that I'll be showing tonight. And these are the ones really that we'll be looking at tonight. These labels, facing slips and forms, all the way to the last batch of labels from the 1940s on, which were used on special delivery items. So the first, the SD one was listed by different types and year, and these are all listed in a field guide of Cinderella stamps of Canada by Ron Lafreniere. So the listings is all there in his guide, along with other stickers and labels from Canada. So I've listed them by year, and I've indicated the quantities that were also printed for each one. So there are some missing years, which either they're either missing or they're unknown to exist at this time. And in the type 2 labels, again, between 66 and 71, some missing, but also some unknown to exist. I suspect, they just have been lost, or I haven't been able to find them so far. And the last 2 types, were done in, each have the 1 year where they were produced. So the type 1 label, this is a typical look. These were, of course, produced from 1939 because the special delivery parcel rate came into effect that year. But as we'll see, they were all also used a lot on envelopes and letters. So this first design is about 7 by 9.5 centimeters in size, with the red lettering and bars, and typically the production number, as you see at the bottom, identifying the form, the first SD1, the quantity, and the order date, December 1960. Here's an example used on the cover, especially if they were, say, number 10 size envelope or larger covers. Although this was against regulations, because this label was meant to be used only on parcels. Of course, I would venture to say maybe half of them were used on letters. So this is the second issue in 1939, issued 75,000 quantity. The first issue in June was issued with 50,000 in quantity. There's a special delivery item sent to the UK. Registered. It was registered and also censored on top of the special delivery service. Of course, this service was only available to its point of departure from the country. So possibly Halifax, for example, where it took the plane to the UK. There was no agreement at that time in 1945 when this was sent between Canada and UK to recognize the special delivery service. But at least the sender could rely on the service being the fastest way to the point of exit of Canada. Now, here are a few examples of the way this label was really meant to be used. This is a parcel piece from on the HMS package to Winnipeg, with a nice block of $1 destroyer stamps, a nice block of 8. Another example, the label used this one on a parcel to Moncton, RCAF base in Moncton, where again we have the blackout rollers and cancel used on these parcels sent during the war years. Another example, if the cover wasn't big enough for the label, of course, it was wrapped around it. This one sent to the US, and you'll notice again with the production number now, the production quantities up to 175,000. So gradual increase in the production of these labels every year. Now here's a type 2 ware produced in 1966. At that time, in that year, the Post Office Department had a reorganization of its order numbers, and it included now 7 digits and the month and year only of production of these labels. The SD1 name or identifier now being produced on the printed on the lower right-hand corner. There's a variety of the SD2 that I've identified, found, and listed in the field guide of Cinderella stamps again. This one missing the order number and having a subscript year instead, and a lighter shade of yellow. Type 3 label on an oversized envelope. This one now showing still the only one produced in 1973, July of 73, with a more or less a half flag and a little different red striping design. And finally, the last type where again the production number now shifted to the bottom right corner with the Canada Post flag logo on the bottom stripe. Of course, for parcel use, these modern tags also became more popular, and these tags were used for possibly bigger parcels, and these this one, which were meant to be reusable, as noted at the bottom, well, this one was effectively canceled in Toronto in 87, and obviously not to be reused. I'm having a little bit of problem with this chat picture screen. Anyways, okay. Next. Oh, no, I can't move to my next slide because of this chat screen.
Can you grab the chat screen on the top and move it over to the right side or up to the top?
Yep. Yeah. Here it is. I'm trying to move it. Are you getting that chat screen?
We don't get it, no.
Okay. Hopefully I can move to the next slide. Yeah. So now we're looking at the SD4 phasing slip. Now this phasing slip, this is a copy that was that I found in Timberwall's exhibits book, which is probably the look of the original phasing slip. These were put out from 1906, and these were used to wrap any and all special delivery letters being sent out. So these phasing slips about 30, 40 centimeters in length, they would be used to wrap it around one or two or a number of special delivery mail items. They would be put on the very top of the pile of letters in the bag or boxes which were distributed, and so that they could be highly visible at the next point of delivery, next post office. So as you see, in between the red bars, there were bilingual instructions printed to explain how these were to be used, and finally to be kept as a record at the office of destination for 2 months and then destroyed. So it certainly goes on a long way in explaining how these are so few and rare. So the earliest that I have been able to find, that copy I would suspect dates from the late 20s, is this slip used in 1935 to send a letter from Moose Jaw to Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. And there is the bottom, the production number is visible here from January 1933. This was produced in 250,000 quantity. So, and there's a very pale hand stamp here in the middle, just underneath distribution of letters of the fee claim by office of the first address, which is the usual hand stamp applied to confirm delivery destination. So here, a little later in 37 and 38, similar facing slips. But as I mentioned before, since the parcel special delivery parcel rate end of 1938 and 39 was to come into effect, now they, as you see, they have now printed a number of special delivery facing slips for articles, as well as where it was always at the beginning for letters only. So now it involve articles. Because prior to 1939, if you wanted to send a parcel by special delivery, you had to pay, send it first class, so pay the first class rate. But from 1939, now the rate was based on the weight. So, and if you're lucky, you can find a facing slip still wrapped around a letter, such as this one, which was sent from Nova Scotia to the US, a censored letter nonetheless. And another fine example of a facing slip still wrapped around. In fact, there was a note inside this OHMS cover to Jasper from St. John's, New Brunswick. There was a note saying how this slip was still wrapped and tied around this cover with an elastic. So you can see the dispatching cancel and the receiving cancel. It was eventually forwarded to Prince George. And this done in 42. And one last example, a very unusual one of this facing slip wrapped around two airmail covers to Newfoundland. I say unusual because there was no agreement, no formal agreement that was ever found between Newfoundland and Canada. But they did, in fact, respect the rates and the conventions of special delivery service with the US initially and eventually and also with Canada. But there are only very few items of special delivery traveling between Canada and Newfoundland, or Newfoundland and Canada, especially before the Newfoundland joined Canada in 1949 as its 10th province. And finally, the facing slips underwent a few revised designs, make them a little longer, a little different shades of yellow, but all now meant to be reused. So it's, I find it fortunate that most of the ones I have in my stock were used with items sent to the US. So I can only suspect that in the US, they may not have used these type of facing slips, but they kept them, and I was able to find quite a few, fortunately for my collection. Now moving on to next SD form, and this is the SD5, the customer acknowledgement form. this one, before we move, we take a look at it, I want to draw your attention to this hand stamp, not in, notice left. Notice referring to the SD5 form. So before the form was launched, the post office decided to have a trial of using this hand stamp in 3 cities across Canada. 3 cities being Hamilton in Ontario, Winnipeg, Manitoba, and Calgary, Alberta. And so they had a short trial period for using this hand stamp to, again, remind the recipient that to acknowledge receipt of their special delivery item. And the form was initially stuck on the back of the cover, taped to the cover. And you can see it here because since 1923, I should mention, where signatures were collected from the recipients of special delivery items. And since that time, they abolished the signature recording and have used, we're going to use these forms. The carrier would, in this case, did partially fill in the form with the login number. So the matching number here, 1064, matching the login number of the special delivery item. And these were to be sent back, signed by the addressee and sent back to the post office. 1947 issue here, basically the same. Especially so with larger envelopes, of course, it was easier to tape the form to the cover. And I have found a third copy, a little different design, but again, with the matching login number here on the front of the cover to the acknowledgement form, the SD5 form, printed in those years in 200,000 quantity. But yet, those are the only 3 forms I've ever seen and found. Moving on to a little more modern item, but these doorknob signs were used apparently from the 1940s, late 40s. These are 2 1978 issues, slight differences in design, but basically to do the same, serving the same role as advising the recipient that there is a special delivery item waiting for them in the post office because it couldn't be delivered on the initial run. And the post office number was there. This one from October 1978 being canceled at the Montreal post office. And finally, the last form we'll be looking at are the those numerous stickers that were being distributed at most post offices, and I mean, clients could take some home and use them from home. So I've again listed them in 9 different groups. These the year of productions of each one right to the end of the service, and with their differences here. Again, all these are listed in the Frenier's Field Guide of Cinderella Stamps of Canada, to which I contributed a number of discoveries of varieties, especially, and we'll see a few of those. The initial label or sticker was put out in November 45, and just a mere hardly a week or two after its distribution, I found this one. This is probably the earliest cover with this label that I found. And in the first issue, the first production in these colors, the special delivery measures 37 millimeters, and there is you notice a light, a small yellow frame around the red, which disappears here, and the lettering now special delivery measures 40 millimeters. So this is I call this a variety of the first issue, and nicely tied with the receiving post office service in Wichita Falls. Always nice to have these tied to the covers. I mentioned a little earlier, Canada to UK cover, this one in June 47. Just a few months prior, there had been an agreement, a formal agreement between Canada and the UK to recognize the service. And so the nice hand stamp here, express fee paid, was the UK way, UK Post Office recognition that the service was paid for in Canada and could be recognized in the UK. It has the second issue of these special delivery labels. The third issue, the third design, mainly in maroon colors with white lettering on nicely tied here on the cover to Montreal, and on this official label to Winnipeg on the bottom here. The next design, mostly red colored labels with yellow lettering. And here I like I obviously picked this cover to the US to point out a number of instructional hand stamps, which I've blown up here. The fee claimed, recognizing from the distributing post office, major cities and a lot of cities in the US had their own personalized fee claim that, in this case, San Francisco city. If they attempted delivery, but were not successful to hand personally the item, the special delivery item, they would use this hand stamp to record the date and time and the possible reason why they couldn't leave it, and the initials of the carrier. And this bottom notice for this mail was left when special delivery service was attempted. I would venture to say this notice is probably the equivalent of in the US of the SD5 Canadian acknowledgement form, because really the special delivery service in Canada, which was inaugurated 13 years after the American service, I'm sure they picked up a lot of ways to identify and all of these hand stamps, similar hand stamps used in both countries. The next, the design form has a number of varieties, which I've helped identify. If you compare these 2-year labels, not only do they have a little show differences in the year of production, where 59 used dashes, and in 68 they used dots. But there's also thick and thin lettering used in that design. And now the next design in 66, again, I mentioned earlier, where this was a year when the post office reorganized the production number using digits, a set of 7 digits. And this is what I'm showing here with this next design. This design also features a number of varieties, again, with the lettering thick and thin. If you if you look at so many of these, they become a little more obvious, but obviously you need a looking glass. On this fairly modern cover to Germany. The next design, the labels have a different look. They're printed in sheets of 56, and they're rouletted in 2 different lengths, at 4.8 and 7. And this sheet rouletted in the larger number, with the Canadian maple leaf design. Next design in 60s in 73, matching. You see the matching stickers that we use for aerial and first class with this half flag design. And design 8, again, produced, but in smaller sheetlets, which a lot of patrons, the post office patron, could grab from the counter and bring home. This one with now a production number printed in the salvage only, and with a number of variety of lettering also. And there's a nice error in this design, which I found with the accent, an acute accent on some of these labels that I found on this cover with from the 88 Olympics with a illustrated cancel from one of the skiing sports. And the final design, self-stick label with the modern wing logo from the Canada Post from the 90s. This one designed from 1992, of course. They also produced a number of them with the Olympic rings indicating their sponsorship for the 92 Olympic teams. So, of course, there were a lot of other different labels being used on Canadian, but these labels, you see 4 different examples here, were mostly private issues from American companies, but used everywhere in North America. So this is a small selection of the ones that I found here. And finally, the special delivery service ended with August 1993 to be taken over by the Express Post Service with its own delivery guarantees and labels and line barcodes and tags. So this was the official end of the special delivery service as such in Canada. Of course, I'm always on the lookout for more forms and labels to add to my inventory, and trying to fill in missing spots. So if anybody has any of them, which I haven't shown you here, because I will venture to say I probably have the largest inventory of these forms and labels in this country, and possibly in the US also. But being that this is for the auxiliary markings group, I have picked out a few more from my inventory of covers that I'd like to tell you about. First of all, this showing you these Vancouver special delivery carrier hand stamps. Vancouver, probably one of the only cities with this type of alpha or numerical hand stamp. And there's about 16 different ones that have been found and recorded in use between 57 and 64. And these are two of those. And these are often used about the same size. There are their numbers, or the carriers had their own numbers or alphabet letters assigned to them. Another cover, which has a number of this cover from Vancouver, registered cover from Vancouver to Chicago. So showing you some of the common fee claim by Office of First Address and stamps that are used in the US to confirm delivery. But also I enjoyed finding this A letter with this alpha. So Chicago having quite an extensive number of cancels and instructional hand stamps for their special delivery service. I suspect they might have had also an alphabetical identification system for various covers. And this second trial hand stamp, I figure this is because of the registration aspect of this cover. This cover took time to be claimed, and they probably had to advertise twice on several occasions, and this merited the second trial hand stamp. But then I'd be looking at members in your group or your newsletters to definitely find more information on these hand stamps. And finally, this Toronto to Chicago cover again, this airmail cover, which I found a number of years ago. This one with a variety of hand stamps, both private and from the postal authorities, Canadian and Americans. They sent this not at Hotel Continental, I would classify as the hotel hand stamp to confirm that this client was not at their hotel to accept this delivery. This letter eventually ended up in the dead letter branch of Chicago in November 29th, after being sent in late October. And of course, the backing has a number of CDS hand stamps to confirm these dates. The unclaimed hand stamp here, I figure, was the American hand stamp, the US hand stamp in Chicago. But the Rebu, unclaimed bilingual hand stamp here, I would suspect is from the Canadian authorities in Ottawa just before it was, or when it reached the DLO office in Ottawa in December 46. The more intriguing hand stamp, not there are 417 or 415 and 1/2. I from what I have been able to find so far is that this is probably a carrier hand stamp. But again, I would really appreciate finding more information from possibly your group, because the closest I have come to, for example, this hand stamp was in a stampsmarter.com web page where a number of the U.S. special delivery forms, labels are listed. So, in any case, that's the end of it. And I'll open it up to questions or comments.
I was just going to say, there's a fantastic book on Chicago auxiliary markings and labels, and it's you can find it on the APS website. It's a monumental book. It's by I think a man named Leonard Peischwitz. I think I'm correct with the pronunciation, but it covers everything. And I would think you'd find information on both the carrier markings and probably also on your special delivery questions as well in there. I was just looking before you finished on as to whether it was available through the VGG library. And I'm not sure whether it is or not, but I know the APS would scan appropriate pages for you and send them to you for a small fee. So you might want to look there.
Sure, thank you. Because Chicago being such a pivot point for a lot of the mail going west from the east, traveling through Chicago to move up to the Western Prairie provinces from the early on. Yeah, I'm definitely I'll want to look that up.
Good. Doug.
I was curious. That was a fascinating talk. You've obviously got a lot of depth in your collection. It's impressive. I was curious, towards the beginning of your slides on SD8, you had a cover from Canada to the UK. I think it had a Nottingham address, and it looked to me like there was a blue line down the middle. Was
Yes.
that a registered mark? It seems in England don't they put a blue line for registered?
In fact, they have a vertical and a horizontal lines, like a big cross.
Right.
And in fact, they have pre-printed covers with this marking, this horizontal and vertical letter. And once the special delivery agreement was signed in April 47 with Canada, they did use the single vertical line as a sign of that mail coming in.
So single vertical line was special delivery, and the cross was registered.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Well, Greg, it's it's Jackie in Chicago. It's Len Piskowitz.
That's right.
Glenn Pliskowitz.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you
In
very much.
pronunciation, that is,
That's great. Thank you. And I did look at the VGG library. They don't have it. So you'd probably have to get it through the APS. I have a copy, so I'll take a look. And if I have the pages, I'll scan them and send it to you. Okay. If there's anything there of interest.
I appreciate that because my last year I showed the Canada US Special Delivery 1899 to 1951 at Orapex, and now I'm revising it to put it in an American show.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm going to get there this year. We have some travel plans which will conflict with the spring or summer shows, but I'm definitely working on showing that because the more I find out through these covers, as I said, there's a lot of comparisons between the American system and the Canadian system. And I'm sure the Canadian system learned a lot from the American system.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Anybody else have any other questions?
Oh, just a comment. Very nice presentation. Unfortunately, I apologize. I came in late. But you were saying you have spring and summer covered. How about the fall, like Chicago picks?
Yes. Well, again, because we'll be away so much this spring, I will need to check out my timing, but definitely Chicago would be a good place to go. I'm keeping my options open.
Well, that would be good. And it's the weekend before our Thanksgiving,
Yes. Okay.
November.
Good. That would give me a little more time. Thanks, Jackie.
Oh, you're welcome.
I wanted to ask, and I want to preface it by saying with the greatest degree of respect before I ask the question, I collect Belgian auxiliary labels, which makes me the #1 collector of Belgian auxiliary labels anywhere in the world. It's not a hot topic, let's put it this way, although it's unbelievably fascinating. Are there, do you know of other people who collect this niche of philately and of Canadian philately or other places in the world? And is there a holy grail piece for Canadian special delivery philatelic items that you don't have that you would like?
Well, first of all, yeah, since I've been collecting and showing and then asking and buying these forms and labels for the last 10 years or more. When a few people had these forms and but they really didn't know what to do with it and never had enough really to put together an exhibit. And I guess because I ventured forward and tried to get as much as I could, then whenever somebody found something, they'd offer them to me or ask me, do you have that? And so that's why I say I'm pretty sure I probably have the biggest inventory of these forms and labels in the country, and I suspect, and I haven't heard of any on the American side collecting these Canadian forms and labels. So I suspect these could be shown across the border and might bring out some of them that maybe are in the collection somewhere. Now, the second part of your question, it dealt with
whether there's a one thing that you
yes.
Yeah.
Well, definitely I would be thrilled to find any because American special delivery system started it was inaugurated in 1885, and I've read where certainly from the early 1890s, some special delivery items were mailed to Canada. So I'm always on the lookout for pre-98 special delivery items from the US to Canada. I find quite a number of nice covers mailed within the States, but none to Canada so far. That would be a nice title page cover to show, until because from 98, the American special delivery stamps were available across the border, and it's similar with our Canadian special delivery stamps, because that's the only way items could be mailed across the border, is using the other countries' special delivery stamps. Yeah, I'll venture to say I'd pay dearly for a special delivery cover to Canada pre-98.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Anybody else have anything? Yeah, please, Doug.
Another quick question. When you got into the auxiliary marking section of your talk, you had that second trial marking on one of the covers. And I was curious, it sounded like you were thinking of it in terms of advertising. Could it simply be a matter of the second attempt? I mean, what we would say here would be second attempt to deliver.
Yes, that's what I meant. The second attempt, the second, possibly, because after the first attempt, a special delivery item no longer qualifies for that special carrier service. You know, it go in the regular mail route, and that could be the second attempt. But being a registered cover, they had to get a signature. And so that's why I guess they use that hand stamp, you know.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I have a question that's a
Please.
not special delivery question, but it is marking or labels. Canada has the flip over stickers.
Yes.
I have not been able to find anything official about them. The number doesn't exist on Canada Post website. My local post people have no clue. They just know that they're supposed to use them whenever there's stuff on the other side, and they usually just use it for registration forms.
Yes.
And well, I weaseled a roll of them from, and I do use them whenever I send stamps, and I put too many 8-cent stamps on, and I have colleagues in Europe. I send them just for the heck of it, because in Europe it's, you know, verboten. It's not allowed to put anything on the back, so they always enjoy getting this. But I don't know. Can you point me? I tried emailing Canada Post, and it just went into a black hole somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But it has a number. That's the thing, you know. That's what gets me. It's got the official number.
Well, I imagine for administration purposes, they did need a number, but I believe that's a fairly modern addition to the stickers being used, and where initially you could find, especially thinking of postal history, you could find all the information on their website, or some website that was available. Lately, well, I'd say the last 20 years, they have put less and less, and it's practically impossible to find any decent information or practical information even. You know, everything is just to the last minute, the latest information or the latest trend. They have sort of given up on the history of their service. So I understand it's frustrating. I've seen a few of them used, but I couldn't help you. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Yeah, it is pretty recent. I presume they used year, month, because that's kind of our way of doing things. So it would be 2007 May, and that's the only day that I've ever seen. So, yeah, well, my search goes on. Maybe one day I'll come across something written.
Yes.
Or,
Yeah.
or,
Well,
or
good
maybe,
luck.
or maybe you might just want to write in a query about it and send it to postal-markings.org, and we can put it in our journal.
Okay, I certainly could do that.
Sure, sure.
How many members are there?
Doug would know better than I would. How many do we have? Do you know?
In the order of 140, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we are just began our 21st year.
Okay, how many of them are Canadian?
I honestly don't know the breakdown.
Okay,
I don't think it's many.
I would say Canada is the second largest country
Yeah,
in terms of members,
right.
but I don't remember I don't know the numbers. I'm the webmaster and the secretary is the person who sees all that. I only see I used to see all the online renewals, but
okay.
now
Well,
it
I
all
just
goes
recently
direct.
joined, so you can call me a newbie.
All right, great. That's fantastic. I mean, why you would not want to be a member of this organization, I don't know.
Well, actually, it's your fault, Greg. You mentioned
Good,
it
good, okay.
in London.
That's right.
And
That's
when I
right.
got home, I said, I got to look this up because I got a box of various stamps from Hamilton, from like older ones from
Yeah,
Hamilton Post Office. And I said, I got to look them up one day and find out what the history is and so on.
great, great.
Or
Well,
start using them on mail.
yeah, exactly. All right. Well, if no one else has any questions, we'll end the recording and thank you for coming. If you're interested and you're watching this after the fact, you're interested in becoming a member, the website is postal-markings.org. And you can find everything you need to know there. And it's a wonderful group, and we hope that you will join. Digital memberships are only $15, and so that's a reasonable amount. Raymond, thank you so much for a really very, very interesting and well done presentation. We all learned a great deal, and I know that I'm going to start looking for anything I can find to do with Canadian special delivery. So thank you for piquing our interest, and thank you everyone for coming along. And we look forward to having a meeting in March, and just keep an eye on the various Facebook groups that we post in, and we'd be delighted to have you join us. So thank you very much, everybody.
Well, thank you again, Greg.